Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining us on this edition of News 2. I'm Sandra Gumansing, topping our newscast 4 months after the high-profile arrest of former Governor John DeYoung. The Attorney General's office is now calling into question the propriety of the judge over the DeYoung trial. According to the AG's office, because of this judge's previous history involving the former governor, he now has to recuse himself from the case. News 2's April Knight has that story.
The Attorney General's office is asking the judge presiding over the DeYoung trial to step down. According to the AG's office, Judge Darrell Donahue was nominated to his second term as VI Superior Court Judge by former Governor John DeYoung and had dismissed Lawrence Olive's civil complaint against DeYoung in 2012. The VI code states that no judge can preside over a case by reason of bias or prejudice. The Code of Judicial Conduct also states that a judge must avoid impropriety or the appearance of impropriety. Donahue is currently presiding over the case involving what is now known as Moffley Gate. Former Governor John DeYoung was arrested in August for diverting funding from federal highway road work towards security measures at his residence. A 2010 report by the U.S. Inspector General put those improvement costs at close to $500,000. In May, the former governor wrote the government a check for $202,000 using his own calculations to reduce the costs. But then Acting Attorney General Terry Griffiths announced that they're returning the money and launching an investigation of the misappropriation of funds, eventually leading to the arrest. DeYoung entered a plea of not guilty in September, and in November his camp filed a motion to dismiss, claiming that the prosecution misquoted the legislative act authorizing the expense toward the security measures. They say that this changed the meaning of the act so that the charges seem more plausible. The trial continues. Reporting for News 2, I'm April Knight.
Also involved in this case is former PFA Chief Julito Francis, who was also arrested in August. News 2 will keep you updated on developments in the DeYoung trial. Well, after the much-awaited approval by a bankruptcy court judge to allow Hovenza to be sold to ArcLight Capital Partners, the operating agreement must now go before the Senate for its review and approval. That review, which was scheduled for December 17th, was moved to December 16th because, according to Senate President Neville James, they're already having Senate session on that day. Senate sessions are supposed to be held on St. Thomas by law. However, there has been no mention of any hearings on St. Croix, which will be the most affected by developments surrounding the refinery. Turn our attention to the courts. Jennifer Bowen-Dudu, 51, made her initial appearance in district court before District Court Judge Curtis Gomez after her arrest on St. Thomas Thursday for sex trafficking of a 13-year-old female minor. According to a criminal complaint filed in district court, Bowen-Dudu directed a 13-year-old female to become involved in a sexual relationship with a 58-year-old adult male and then demanded that the male make monthly deposits into Bowen-Dudu's bank account. According to the monthly deposits, Bowen-Dudu periodically demanded other cash payments in exchange for facilitating the male's continued access to the minor. If convicted, Bowen-Dudu faces a mandatory minimum sentence of 10 years in prison, maximum sentence of life in prison, and a fine of up to $250,000. Edridge Klein, 45, was arrested after a federal grand jury returned a one-count indictment against him Thursday, charging him with possession with intent to distribute marijuana. After his arrest, Klein made his initial appearance before District Court Judge Curtis Gomez, who ordered that he be released on a $25,000 unsecured bond with GPS monitoring. Arraignment is scheduled for December 9th. If convicted of possession with intent to distribute marijuana, Klein faces a maximum sentence of 5 years in prison and a $250,000 fine. The VIPD Crime Prevention Bureau invites all residents of the Cruz Bay area of St. John to the crime prevention meeting that will be held on December 16th at 5:30 p.m. at the St. John Legislature Building. Your concerns as well as viable solutions are welcome to better our community. Contact Police Officer Marilyn Lauer, who can be reached at 340-693-8880 or with any questions and concerns. Well, in some breaking news this afternoon, on Sunday, we got this late today, Sunday, October 7th at 11:51 p.m., officers were dispatched to Veterans Drive after having received notification from Central Dispatch of an unresponsive male that was being transported by vessel. The unresponsive male was identified as Barry Thiel, 49, of Ohio. Thiel was taken to the Roy Leicester Schneider Hospital, where he never regained consciousness after suffering a severe cardiac arrest. Barry Thiel was pronounced dead at 12:45 p.m. after receiving treatment at the hospital. Family members have already been notified of this incident. The Committee on Economic Development, Agriculture and Planning, chaired by Senator Jeanette Millen Young, held a meeting at the Capitol building on Friday to receive testimony on Bill number 31-0226, which is an act amending Title 9, VI Chapter 11, adding Subchapter 2, enacting the U.S. VI Uniform Multiple Person Accounts Act. This bill proposes to ease the transfer of accounts to beneficiaries upon death of the account holder. And Dwayne Howell, Deputy Commissioner of Grants Administration for the Department of Human Services, explained, as well as Tom Bolt, Chair of the USVI Uniform Law Commission. He said this deals with non-probate transfers. It will remove things from the probate process, such as the courts. Ultimately, committee members voted and approved Bill number 31-0226. Count on 2 to keep you updated. Well, on Sunday, December 6, approximately 5:20 p.m., Michael Swift, 56, of Estate Bordeaux, was arrested and charged with grand larceny. Swift was arrested after the victim caught him removing a television from under a shed at the Crown Bay Marina and attempted to put it in his vehicle. During further investigation, officers located several other items belonging to the victim in Swift's vehicle. Bail for Michael Swift was set at $35,000. He was remanded to the Bureau of Corrections pending his advice of rights hearing. Well, it's been months since the drought spell that severely threatened farmers and their livelihood across the territory. Drought relief efforts continue, however, as the Department of Agriculture extends the hundreds of thousands in relief funds that the Senate legislated in September. NEWS2's April Knight has more from the Senate hearing on Friday.
The rains have been coming down recently in the region, but the VI Department of Agriculture is still conducting drought relief efforts. On Friday, VI Agriculture Commissioner Carlos Robles came before the Senate Committee on Economic Development, Planning and Agriculture, providing an update on the $500,000 in drought relief funds released to the department in September.
Given the report that you have provided for us today, we're out of crisis?
To a degree, yes. More so in the St. Thomas district than St. Croix. St. Croix still, it's far better than what it was during the summer.
According to the commissioner, some $176,000 have already been expended. Some $140,000 are encumbered. There's about $180,000 remaining to be spent from the total $500,000 drought funding. The priority, according to James, are hay and animal feed, expansion of irrigation systems, and restoration of pastures in both districts.
Livestock farmers in St. Croix in particular still face challenges with pasture development. While many pastures, for the most part, have recovered and reseeded, the drought and the consequential overgrazing have rendered a number of pastures barren and unsuitable for providing sustenance for livestock.
On St. Croix only, it's the purchase of 2 water trucks, an upgraded freezer and storage, as well as a new hay baler. In spite of increased rain activity, monitoring continues, according to James, as challenges remain for the territory's farmers. Reporting for NEWS2, I'm April Knight.
The Department of Agriculture is also in communication with the United States Department of Interior on aid for the territory, which is a designated rural area eligible for various grants. Turn our attention overseas. Meanwhile, UK experiences flooding in Cumbria and Lancashire. Nearly 45,000 homes are suffering from power cuts, while an estimated 5,200 homes have been affected by flooding. In Cumbria, police said a man's body had been recovered from a river. Storm Desmond lashed parts of Northern Ireland, North Wales, southern Scotland, and especially northwest England over the weekend, and more heavy rain is expected this week. Record-breaking amounts of rain fell in Cumbria, the worst hit county, prompting the county to declare a major incident. The devastation has prompted criticism of the government after multi-million-pound defenses built following floods in Cumbria in 2005 failed to keep the deluge out from people's homes. Well, coming back closer to home, Puerto Rico may have dodged a bullet when it avoided default last week, but its decision to command a revenue that was supposed to be met by future debt payments will invite creditor pushbacks and possibly lawsuits. Creditors have long criticized Puerto Rico's spending habits. The U.S. territory, which owes creditors $72 billion, last Tuesday avoided defaulting on a $355 million payment, but it owes another such payment on January 1st, which can only be made if revenue that was earmarked to repay and service other debt owed by various government agencies is reproposed. Governor Alejandro Garcia Padilla said the island said it also needs to use that revenue to keep some key services operating. Keeping our eye on the economy, the Puerto Rico unit Walmart stores, meanwhile, sued the island's government, seeking to overturn a new tax the retailer calls unfairly high, enacted in May. Puerto Rico's Act 72-2015 increases to 6.5% from 2%. The tax on goods imported from offshore affiliates to local companies with gross revenues of more than $2.75 billion. The increase comes as the U.S. Commonwealth, of course, is struggling to restructure $70 billion in debt, more than every U.S. state, but New York and California. This week, the U.S. Supreme Court, as we just mentioned, agreed to consider reinstating a law that would let Puerto Rico's debt-ridden public utilities restructure their obligations. The new levy raised the estimated cumulative income tax on Walmart Puerto Rico Inc. to an astonishing and unsustainable, they say, 91.5% of its net income. Well, let's take a look at the New York Stock Exchange with our Stock Market Watch. Taking a look at the Dow, NASDAQ, S&P. The Dow down 117, NASDAQ 40, S&P 500 also down at 14. Coming up on News 2, we have more events for you to add to your Christmas social calendar. 'Tis the season. Highlights coming up next. Welcome back. It was an action-packed holiday weekend at the St. George Village Botanical Gardens on St. Croix this weekend. Friday night, the garden hosted its annual Holiday Gala fundraiser. The Great Hall was lined with sponsors, specially decorated Christmas trees, and guests were treated to great performances by St. Croix illusionist Johnny Damon and Kiki and the Flaming Gypsies. Items auctioned off included the decorated Christmas trees, trips to St. Thomas, and more. Sunday's event, which is Christmas Spoken Here, featured choirs performing Christmas carols and holiday music. Visitors roamed the grounds, sampling the wide variety of food and drinks while shopping for holiday gifts that included local artwork, jewelry, and handmade crafts. Santa Claus was there too, taking gift requests from good little boys and girls. John Woodson Junior High School Band's annual Christmas tour begins. It's coming up with a performance at the Ricardo Richards Elementary School at 9:15 a.m., followed by a performance at Alfredo Andrews Elementary School at 1 p.m. The Humane Society is hosting their holiday tree lighting ceremony from 4:30 to 7:30 p.m. at the campus. Also, a few restaurants are donating on the 11th. They're donating a portion of the proceeds for dinners that are supporting the Humane Society. Probably Lawson kindergartners will be holding their Christmas showcase at 6:30 p.m. at the school's auditorium. Hanukkah, the Jewish holiday celebrating the rededication of the Holy Temple. The local Jewish community has events scheduled throughout the week. We'll have more on Hanukkah on a later newscast. Meanwhile, a menorah lighting ceremony is currently ongoing at Government House, with here's Rabbi Asher Fetterman on the significance of the menorah.
The holiday also represents the idea of increasing light and goodness and kindness, which is represented within the menorah. The menorah has 8 branches, but the menorah is all one whole piece that represents various flames, various differences various forms of expression of different people. Yet at the same time, we remember that we're all made from the same stem, and we all have the same purpose in this world, which is to make the world a brighter place.
Well, on Tuesday and Wednesday, December 7th to 9th, St. Croix Casino Management employees will be providing training by certified specialists in recognition of Gambling Awareness Week. Thursday, December 10th, the Commission will take its message to St. Thomas, where certified specialists will be on hand to disseminate information and interact with the St. Thomas community. Saturday, December 12th, the Commission, in collaboration with the Sunny Isle Shopping Center's management, will sponsor its Family First VI Responsible Gaming Awareness Family event. Lots of Christmas things in there. It will be a fun day for the entire family with lots of surprises for the children and their families. On hand at the event will be problem gambling experts who will be there to answer questions and provide advice on responsible gambling. We'll have more later this week. Be sure to stick around. Your News 2 AccuWeather forecast is coming up next.
Happy Monday, and thanks for tuning in. For everyone watching at home, I am Larissa Abreu here with a look at your Virgin Island forecast. So here's a big picture of the Caribbean, and we can see that in the South Caribbean, they're enjoying gorgeous conditions, but off to our north and west, we actually have an area of disturbed weather, a very weak upper level disturbance that has been producing scattered showers across the Virgin Islands, portions of Puerto Rico as well. The good news is that disturbance will continue to dissipate, and as it does, the pattern will become more tranquil, especially as we head into our Tuesday and Wednesday. So for tonight, still can't rule out a chance for a scattered